いくつもの伝説が生まれ、そして消えてゆく。
It's no secret that the Game Boy and Game Boy Color weren't exactly famous for their fighting games. I mean, sure, Capcom and Acclaim launched a few games for their systems, but the official ports of Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat weren't particularly great. And while the Game Boy Color did get a surprisingly good port to Street Fighter Alpha, it was the only good fighting game for the system. Well, there was Power Quest as well, but that one's a weird hybrid where it's part RPG and part fighting game. Ironically, the original Game Boy actually got a few really high quality fighting games courtesy of Takara. These came in the form of Battle Arena Toshinden, an 8-bit game which I've already reviewed and is far better than its 32-bit counterparts. And the surprisingly good King of Fighters 95, 96, and Fatal Fury series. These are honestly some really incredible fighting games for the system, though sadly none of them were released for the Game Boy Color. But what if I told you that some of the best fighting games on the Game Boy Color weren't ever released in the West, or even Japan for that matter? What if I told you that most of these were only ever launched in Taiwan? And what if I told you that these games had remained undumped and unplayable until 2022? Yes, these are Game Boy games developed in the 90s that you would simply not find on any ROM website list. And that's where today's studio, Vast Fame, comes in. Vast Fame is a game development studio housed in Taiwan, famous for its high-quality bootleg games. In fact, if the name Vast Fame seems familiar to you, it might be because I've previously talked about them before in my Chinese Megaman video, in which the first game was surprisingly good and could almost pass for an official Capcom game, the sequel, which wasn't as good but still decent, the spin-off, which was a Metroidvania on the Game Boy Color made by a different bootleg studio, and the final game on the GBA, which, yeah, we don't talk about that one. But yeah, during its heyday, Vast Fame was considered as one of the best bootleg game devs out there, with some surprisingly high quality releases that, had they gotten official releases back in the day, you'd most likely see them today on several YouTube hidden gem lists. But yeah, as you might have guessed, these games we'll be looking at today are not official. So you might be wondering, okay, so why did I say that these are new SNK games? Well, originally, Vast Fame would release hacks of the official King of Fighters games in which they would simply add new characters, like with Super Fighters S. But soon after they would go much further than that, and began developing their own bootleg SNK games by reverse engineering the official King of Fighters Game Boy fighting engine. So what this means is you now have a developer which had access to the official SNK game engine and the official art and sprites and began to make their takes on the series without SNK's or Nintendo's consent. And believe it or not, these games are surprisingly good. And the reason why you would not find these games on any ROM website lists is because, believe it or not, all of these games had copy protection. Yes, that's right, these guys were basically pirates who stole a game engine and art assets, released their cartridges unofficially without Nintendo's or SNK's consent, and then even had the massive balls to add copy protection to their games. Man, that is such a power move. And so, today, we now have 3 new Game Boy Color SNK-inspired fighting games that are finally available to play for the first time ever in over 20 years. Now, as far as I know, not every Vast Fame game has been dumped yet. The good folks over at Handheld Underground tease that more releases coming soon. But for now, we'll take a look at these 3 new games in chronological order. We begin with Queen Fighters 2000, also known as Gals Fighters, which was Vast Fame's take on SNK's Gals Fighters for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Released in the year 2000, this game seeks to recreate SNK's official game on the weaker Game Boy Color hardware. And honestly, they did an admirable job. I mean, heck, put the two side by side and it might take you a while to tell which one's which is all the more impressive when you consider that the Neo Geo Pocket Color is a 16-bit system, whereas the Game Boy Color is 8 bits. And yes, I know, there's more to a console than just bits, but I think we can all agree that the Neo Geo Pocket Color is a more powerful system than the Game Boy Color. And yet, look at this! The sprite size and detail on here is super impressive, and though the animation frames took a major hit, it still has more animation frames than your typical Game Boy Fighter, and in some areas it actually looks pretty smooth and well animated. With that said though, the backgrounds are completely static and there's a bit of a delay on your inputs. I mean, don't get me wrong, the input delay is nowhere near as bad as Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 2 on the Game Boy. This is still perfectly playable, but it might take you some time to get used to this slight input delay at first. One interesting thing about this game and most subsequent Vast Fame releases is that they didn't just steal sprites from SNK's games. They also changed them and would then add their own fighters and interpretations, all of which are based on SNK's games on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, with the characters mostly coming from the King of Fighters series and SNK vs Capcom. A lot of the characters are still here, but they were given new names and designs, but will still be familiar to anyone with even a passing interest on SNK's fighting games. So for example, Yuki here is clearly meant to be Mai Shiranui from the Fatal Fury series, and more importantly, she plays like her. But then you also have this sexy nurse, who is clearly Morgan from Darkstalkers. Which is kinda funny, because Morgan wasn't even in the official Gals Fighters game for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. But she's not the only one. You even have what is essentially a female version of Ryu from Street Fighter, which again, was not in the official Gals Fighters game. What I love about this is that by picking and choosing characters from SNK and Capcom across several series and mashing them up, Vast Fame ends up surpassing its bootleg origins and comes back around to create something completely original. The music is theirs, the sprites are edits of other games, but they've made it theirs. And they've kept the art style consistent across all characters, but also consistent across SNK's Neo Geo Pocket Color games. And by using SNK's official Game Boy fighting engine, it feels like an SNK game. And that is honestly really impressive. I mean, look at this! It's fast, it's smooth, and the music is pretty good. I mean, sometimes it's a little off, but for the most part, this is a video game soundtrack that is actually good. Although it is kinda weird how one song seems to be ripping off Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. In fact, it's kinda funny playing this game now, because it's something of a time machine full of references to late 90s anime and JRPG culture, like how one of the fighters was clearly modeled after card captor Sakura. I mean, she even has a cosplay outfit just like Sakura does in the anime. But of course, for my main character, I had to go with Rinoa here from Final Fantasy VIII. They don't even try to hide the fact that it's her. I mean, her name is literally one character away from telling you who she's supposed to be. Although the fact that she's a close combat brawler kinda makes me think that maybe she's supposed to be a mashup of Rinoa and Tifa. And honestly, I am all in on a fighting game where you can play as Rinoa and Tifa's love child. And look! Is that a combo system I see? Yes! Yes it is! Oh, and what's that? This game has specials? Oh my god, that is amazing! Oh, was that a counter just now? Yes, this game has counters. This bootleg fighting game has actual counters. There are official fighting games in the 90s that do not have counters, and this bootleg game has them? No, you stop right there. You do not get to come in here and type that this game sucks. This is literally a bootleg fighting game with a combo system, specials, and counters. You do not get to come here and tell me that this game sucks. This is honestly just incredible. And the fact that all of this runs on the same engine used by the official SNK fighting games just makes all of it feel even more appropriate, official or not. But wait, we're not done yet, because this game also has tag team battles. Yes, this game has a King of Fighters style tag team battles. You can pick from 3 characters and the game will do the same. And then you can have them tag team just like a real SNK game. No, wait, actually no. This is not like a real SNK game, because the official Gals Fighters game doesn't have tag team. Yes, this game actually does something better than the official SNK title, and it does so by implementing one of the features that made SNK famous in the first place. This game is just amazing. Yes, there is some bootleg jankiness here, but it's honestly pretty minor. And had this been released back in the day officially, with the minor jankiness fixed, this would have been considered a fighting game masterpiece for the Game Boy Color. But we're not done yet, because the next year, Vast Fame would release Super Fighter 2001 Alpha. And even though this is using the same engine as Gals Fighters and the official Game Boy King of Fighters engine, you can tell there's been a pretty major overhaul to the game's graphics and art style, dropping the chibi-like graphics in favor of more traditional proportions and anime aesthetics. The funny thing is that they're still reusing many of the same characters from Gals Fighters, like Nurse Morrigan here, but they had to redraw her to fit in with the new art style. This is actually one of the reasons why Vast Fame is so well liked in the bootleg scene. Most bootleg devs would just throw in the same sprite as before and call it a day. But these dudes would actually go out of their way to keep everything consistent and high quality. And remember, the studio did not have access to official Nintendo dev kits or support, so they were pretty much left to fend themselves on their own. One thing I noticed is that with the redrawn graphics, this game is now more responsive than Gals Fighters. There's still a bit of a delay, but the game seems to have been rebalanced in a way that makes this seem intentional and part of the gameplay. And it also feels like the anime AI has the same input delay that you do. With this being an official King of Fighters game, Vast Fame could now use characters from SNK's entire roster, instead of being limited to just the women characters, or having to create female versions of Capcom's characters. Additionally, the characters have been redrawn to accurately portray who they are supposed to be. So this means that Mai Shiranui now actually looks like Mai, though she's now called Louie for some reason. But Athena looks like Athena, and official best girl Leona looks like official best girl Leona. Additionally, we now have the male cast in here as well, like Terry, Kyoko Sanagi, and many more. In fact, the game's roster is now loosely based around King of Fighters 99, which I'm all for. But they still found the time to add in Nurse Morrigan here, meaning that yes, you can now play a King of Fighters game where you can have Morrigan, Mai, and Leona in the same team, which I completely love. Sadly, no Ryu though. Other than that though, not much has changed about the actual gameplay. You still have combos, counters, and specials. I also noticed that some of the sound effects seem to be taken from the Game Boy Megaman games, which makes sense as Vast Fame often employed the Game Boy Megaman 5 sound engine. In fact, some of the songs in this game can also be found on Vast Fame's Megaman bootleg series. Also, please check out my Chinese Megaman video. I put a lot of work into it and it turned out really good. Other than that, the only other major addition to this game is a training mode, where you can practice your moves against an inert CPU character with infinite health and infinite time. Oh, and also, I should have mentioned this on Gals Fighters, but all of these games have a 2-player option. So if you have a friend with a Game Boy Color, a link cable, and another one of these bootleg fighting games, which, let's be honest, you don't, You can fight against each other using said link cable. Which again, it's really impressive that this series of bootlegs actually supports an official peripheral, considering that this game isn't even sanctioned by Nintendo or SNK. And finally, we move on to Soul Falchion. Soul Falcon? Soul Falchion? I don't know. Which is vast fame's take on Last Blade or Samurai Shodown. For those of you keeping score at home, that's 3 different SNK fighting game styles that Vast Fame decided to tackle and successfully reproduce. Once again, this game uses the SNK Game Boy fighting engine, and once again, it lets you use the Tag Team Battle Mode, which is something the official Samurai Shodown games on the Game Boy or Neo Geo Pocket Color do not let you do. But if you don't care about that and you just want to do a regular one-on-one match like in Samurai Shodown, then don't worry, Vast Fame has you covered. Because you can select if you want one-on-one or 3-on-3 fighting matches before you start the game. Also, yes, this is the first game where the menus and all the text are in English, although it's not very good English. You might also notice that the art style has changed once again, with the characters being even smaller than the previous King of Fighters game. Though this has the added benefit of making this the most responsive fighting game out of the group. Now, personally, I did not have an issue with the slight input delay of the previous 2 games. But if you're the type of person who cannot stand for that, then Soul Falcon is the game for you, as this game is perfectly responsive. Now, this game has actually been dumped before, but it was always as part of those multi-game bootleg carts we often see. As for some reason, multi-game bootleg carts rarely had copy protection. But this is the first time that this game has been dumped as a standalone title, meaning it's now much easier to find it and play it. All of the characters in this game were taken from the Neo Geo Pocket Color versions of Last Blade and Samurai Shodown. Though it is kinda funny how their names were changed, and now half of them are named after Mortal Kombat characters, like Saibot, Ermac, Sonya, and Shang, who I assume is meant to be Shang Tsung. Gameplay-wise, this game is pretty much the same as the previous entries, just with different characters and moves, which, to be fair, is how I feel about the Neo Geo Pocket Color games as well. So there's no real point in going in depth with this one, as we've already seen 2 other games back to back. Interestingly enough, Soul Falcon was released in 2002, which was right at the end of Vast Fame's golden years. Basically, the studio is known for their high-quality bootleg releases on the Game Boy Color. But by 2002, some of their releases were starting to go down in quality, and by 2003, they would move on to the Game Boy Advance, where a lot of their titles were beyond awful, like their take on Megaman X, which is honestly one of the worst games I've ever played. But none of that changes that for a while there, Vast Fame was riding a pretty interesting and unique high for a bootleg game company, as not many bootleg game studios can claim to have achieved this level of quality, commitment, or even cult following. Now, if you want to play these games, your best bet is going directly to their source, at the handheld underground website, and downloading them. Chances are you'll also need their modified emulator, which bypasses any security that these original bootlegs might have had. But the fact remains that it took 20 years to see these games being dumped, and that the ROMs are only available on one website, so it's still just as easy to see them fall into complete obscurity again. So my advice to you is to download these and share them. Share them with the world, put them on ROM websites, do not let them disappear. I know bootleg games get a bad reputation, but not all of them are bad. And this is one example where bootleg games are better than a lot of official releases and fully deserve to be preserved. And it's up to us to ensure that happens. Hey everyone, thank you for watching Stika's Retro Corner. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video. All that fun social media stuff. And you can also support me on Patreon. It may not seem like it, but even $1 is a really big help in keeping this channel going. I would also like to thank my newest Patreon supporter, Spiderbutt 666. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Bye!